Awesome. Hey, everybody, we're live and kicking, and we're going to start with, in order of quasi seniority, bottom left, our esteemed NFL draft expert of many years, technically decades. That's not
Yeah.
technically, that's true.
Yeah. Right.
And then Vinny Lospinoso, our NFL draft expert.
Hall of Fame expert, as it says so right below my name. Hall of
And,
Fame expert.
and skipping over the guy that's talking, our welcome back Cotter group member, who we just lost, and now we have just found again. Uh, PJ Kite.
Hello.
There he is. Yeah.
I'm back.
Yes.
Yeah, welcome back, man. Welcome.
Yes.
Welcome.
Woo.
Yeah, welcome.
Glad to
Okay,
be
so
back.
since we switched positions, Bill, let's start with you. What do you think of the current game and what's on your mind about what happened today in this NFL week?
So, yes, I have friends who are Chargers fans. They constantly say that we're snake bit, right? That's what they say all the time. And I sort of wave it away, and then I watch this game and say, maybe they're onto something. There were two big missed calls that put them in a situation where they probably would have had at least a touchdown by now that they didn't get. There was the out of bounds hit on. I mean, here we are in this age where you can barely breathe on a quarterback, and there's a late hit out of bounds and no call. And then there's a fair catch interference call that would have moved them from the 11 to the 26, which may or may not have impacted the outcome of that drive, except it would at least give them a chance to pin the Ravens deep in their own end when they punted. If we assume that they wouldn't have picked up a first down, even from there, they would have a chance to drive them back deeper. So Chargers fans have always an impending sense of dread anyway, and I'm beginning to see why. We talked earlier about how the Raiders look different, and though they just aren't a good enough team yet to really threaten a team as good as the Chiefs, you saw places where they would have maybe let go of the rope, right? They would have gotten rolled up, and it might have turned into a really ugly game. They kept that game fairly competitive against a much better team, and actually, of course, had an early lead.
Yeah.
And you see the development of Rashee Rice. Now, Rashee Rice, I know personally, the person that recruited him to Southern Methodist, is a run after the catch guy, right? He's 4.51 in the 40, which is not blazing fast, but it's not slow. But he's a guy that once he has the ball in his hands, he runs hard, he runs tough. He's 211 pounds, 6 feet and 7/8 of an inch, and not afraid of contact. I want to accuse any receivers by name, but some receivers don't like getting touched. Rashee Rice thrives on contact. He's almost like Deebo Samuel in that way, in that he will run through an arm tackle, will run through a shoulder shot. You have to wrap him up and bring it down almost like a running back. And as he and Patrick Lavon Mahomes II develop more and more of a rapport, watch for Rashee Rice. If you're a fantasy player, watch for Rashee Rice to close out this season strong.
All right. So next, Bill. After Bill, we have Vinny. Vinny.
I think looking at this game right now, the Chargers are a team that seems more and more likely that they're going to fire their head coach at the end of the season, especially if everything keeps going the way it is. Brandon Staley is a guy that many Chargers fans, I know from personal experience, as my best friend, is essentially the Phillip Rivers version of myself. No, that's serious. He's even a distant relative of mine. He's my mom's maiden name. This is a team that should, in theory, I love Justin Herbert. I really, really do. And I think he gets a lot more flack than he should have. That being said, the defense does not play up to its standard, especially as Staley is a defensive genius. And the defenses just don't perform. That's just the issue. The defenses do not perform. If you're a defensive-minded head coach, you would expect or want your defense to at least be in the top half of the league. But the defense always finds a way to blow it at the very end of the game all the time, essentially. And it's a real shame for Herbert because he is one of the best quarterbacks in this game. But that's why they're not going to be better than the Chiefs, or hell, I'd even say they're not even better than the Broncos. Even the Raiders, you can make an argument for, because at least with the Broncos, they've been on a winning streak and pieces are starting to click. And even for the Raiders, at least they show signs of playing up to their competition. The Chargers, in many instances, especially on the defensive side, play down to their competition more often than not. The Ravens, on the other hand, by comparison, it's the team that, the Bengals, Burrow's done for the season. The Browns, they have a bunch of injury issues. Steelers, they're 7-4, but they have a lot of question marks. The Ravens, even though they have Mark Andrews out, this is a real opportunity for them to really stamp this division as their own. And so far, if everything holds up right, it looks like that might just very well be the case.
PJ, you're up.
Yeah. Repeat the question because I was listening and then I lost the question.
He was asking, what do you think of the game so far between the Ravens and the Chargers, and how it's going to affect the rest of the season?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Or I'll amend that. Or any contest you happen to see, because I know your schedule's busy and you happen to focus on. So it's sort of open-ended, but go ahead.
Okay. Looking at all of the games from today and, looking at this game right now with Baltimore up 13-3. LA, they've always struggled with their head coach. They made it to the playoffs almost. Let's see, what was it?
They made the playoffs last year, and they blew a 27-0 lead against the Jaguars.
That's right. Yeah. So Chargers go to the playoffs last year, and now they're struggling. And you have to wonder, like Vinny said, is Coach Staley going to be the head coach next year? Doubt it. I really don't believe that Staley is going to stay a head coach with LA and with Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore is just such a good team, and they are just beating up on everybody that they come in contact with. I watching Baltimore throughout this year. I mean, man, they outscore their opponents, and it's insane to watch what Lamar Jackson is doing. And so I think Lamar, the Ravens right now, I think they're in first place in the AFC right now. So
AFC South, AFC Central.
Jaguars are in first place in the AFC South.
Every AFC North, I meant. Yeah.
North,
but PJ's right. If they win this game, they will be the top seed.
Yeah.
As of now, they're not. But if they win this game, they will be.
That's right.
Yeah, because maybe 9-3. Yeah.
Yeah, and so seeing Baltimore, they'll be top seed, and watching the Chiefs and Raiders game. Raiders, they're somewhat competitive, but it's Chiefs are found their stride today. They struggled for 3 or 4 games, and now I think they found their mojo again. If will be, they found their groove again today by beating the Raiders. Now, will that help them in the end? I don't know. It's very possible, but with the way things are looking, it's going to be Baltimore in that top spot unless somebody can knock them down.
You mentioned the Raiders. I should give a shout out to Aiden O'Connell. According to Total QBR, he was great. He had a QBR of 90.4, second this week in the league. Not bad. Not bad at all. Like the last 4 starts, both of them top 3. The 2 out of 4, he was top 3 in QBR. Like, again, that's not bad. I think they're gonna stick with this guy the rest of the year, and he's been competitive in games that they need him. Now, do I think the Raiders are a playoff team? I mean, if this was the NFC, it could very well be possible.
Yeah.
But
can I try something, Tex? Quick.
What?
Oh, it's Buzz B. On the Cheerio box. I'm ready to talk. Can I say something?
You speak.
Oh, good. I just finished eating my Honey Nut Cheerios, and I have to say one thing. I'm tired of losing to the Chiefs. The Chiefs suck. I couldn't bellyache. I'm this with those 2 people over there who used to be on The Office. Do you remember that? Oh. But I will tell you something. I thought the Raiders were going to beat them and blow them out of the stadium. You're ahead. They had a lead.
It looked like that pretty early on.
We blew the lead. was so upset I couldn't eat anymore. I threw my bowl against the wall, and I'm small. I never thought I could do that before. It pissed me off.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Something. I had faith in them. They were back. I thought I bought all the speeches. I loved it when they kicked Daniels, whatever his name was. Not Daniels. He's in the current one. Josh.
Oh,
Josh
McDaniels.
McDaniels.
Yes, Josh McDaniels.
I'm so upset with the Raiders losing. I can't stand it.
Ugh.
I got to eat my Cheerios.
Okay, well.
Anyway, as I was saying, for just the Raiders in general. Yeah, So, Zenny, what are your thoughts on the game that happened?
Well, I think Buzz is right. You know, it's a very frustrating game to watch. I'm disappointed that the Raiders didn't understand that the Chiefs at first had a defense. We were attacking, and they decided, and really, this was the seed corn for the Raiders, falling ahead of the Chiefs. I don't know if anyone remembers that 4th and 1, the 78-yard touchdown run. The Chiefs is sold out to stop the run.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And they did so in such a way that, and Bill, you know this better than anybody else. If you break that defense they had up there, that's it.
That's it.
It's current.
They had everybody within about 3.5 yards of the line of scrimmage. So
Yeah. So
if
did you
make
notice?
it through, yeah.
Did you notice the Chiefs stopped making mistakes like that afterward?
Correct.
They
They
decided, you know what, we're going to keep these guys in front of us. And what bothers me about the Raiders is it looks like they didn't junk. And, you know, how could you, given the season, the passing game that Josh McDaniels installed? Because it's so inflexible. And I don't look. I'm a Bill Walsh disciple. I throw it in my back. So someone says to you, "Well, my receivers aren't getting open," and I'm thinking, "Oh, great! I'm throwing play action to my fullback, play action my halfback." I didn't see that. However, I will say this: the Raiders are good enough to win, but they're not being put in the position to win. Now, the other contest I want to talk about, Saints. Well, I'll come back to that. No, Ellen. I want to talk about the Eagles and the Bills because that was epic. I don't know.
That was the best game of the year. So
Yep.
I can watch that all day long.
game of the year.
Fantastic.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch that game because I was watching
phenomenal.
a little bit of it before I went to church, and then I noticed that it had gone in, the Bills were winning, and then it was close to the end of the game, and I missed it. I missed the rest because of family watching TV. So I missed the end of that game, but I heard it was definitely an exciting game, and it looked exciting by the way it was just going back and forth.
Barn
And what
burner.
I did watching it, man, that was fun. Watching
Yeah, who was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles? Brian Johnson? Is that him?
It's still Brian Johnson, yes. Who
Yeah,
I
Brian
remember
Johnson.
watching at Utah, right? He got recruited to Utah by Urban Meyer right before he left, and played for Coach Whittingham, who took over when Urban Meyer left, and had a fantastic career. Came as a junior college guy, comes up to Utah. I think he's something like 20-5 or 20-6 or something as a starter at Utah. Goes almost immediately into coaching as a quarterbacks coach at Utah, and then moves his way up to the ranks. Very young, bright coach. He's going to be a head coach in the NFL before it's all.
He did a fantastic job, and that series of fourth quarter selections was fantastic. But correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't read the news. Was that Joe Brady who came in to replace?
Yes, Joe Brady came to replace Ken Dorsey. That's correct.
Dorsey, yep, correct.
That was a great hire.
Yes.
I'm a Joe Brady fan. I thought his rise was a little too meteoric, too fast, but I think he's right where he belongs as offensive coordinator. I never saw him as a head coach material, but all that aside, I think this was, even though they lost, one of the better games he called in his career. Just
Definitely.
I thought, wow, and I looked up, thought, who is at the it figures. That's a game that, and I usually don't have this come into my head much. I wish I was at that game. I wish I had tickets to the game. I would have had an umbrella in there with Philly cheesesteak with hot sauce, of course, because I don't cheese to eat doesn't agree with me like it used to. I would.
really?
Oh no. Hey, but anyway, my point is that was classic NFL football. That was something you put in NFL films. You could take back in time to 1956. You can run it forward to 2056. That's the NFL. I just love that contest. I just have to say that. Now, Saints, I'm not going to go into my B routine because, I'll just lose my voice after that one.
I'll just say this.
Go ahead, Vinny.
Rise up.
Hey, I do have to say, I was disappointed that the Eagles won that game because I kind of root for the Cowboys as well. So I was a little disappointed that the Eagles won that one. But
it does change. That's a good point, PJ. So how does that change the playoff picture, you all?
It
Well, I
doesn't
can
change
tell you right
anything.
now,
The
if someone
Eagles,
looks at it.
the Eagles are close. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The Eagles are still the number one seed.
Right.
The Niners are
I
the
think
2
that-
seed. The Lions are a 3 seed. Because of this game you're going to talk about, where the Falcons are now the 4 seed. The Cowboys are the 5 seed.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, the Cowboys are the 5 seed. Yeah, they're the best wild card team. Then the Vikings are the 6 seed. Let's see if they hold on to that if they win tomorrow. And then by the skin of their teeth, the Seahawks are the 7 seed.
Yeah, PJ, you raised something that my mom said because I was trying to explain to her that because the NFC South has such a poor record of teams overall, or teams with poor records overall, you can have a losing record and still be the division leader.
Yep.
And that will guarantee you a wild card spot.
which
But
is
has
insane to me.
It is insane. But wait, Bill, has there ever been a time when the record was so poor that no team in that division got a playoff spot? Or
No, because
It's
the division
impossible
winner-
because you're guaranteed a spot.
Okay.
You're
That's what I thought.
you're always guaranteed a spot.
Right.
Though there are some instances where I can think of where like 2014 comes to mind. This is before they expanded the playoff field from 12 to 14.
Right.
The Carolina Panthers won the NFC South with a 7-8-1 record. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia Eagles went 10-6 and missed the playoffs.
Right, didn't make it right.
Another example that comes to mind actually is here's one. 2020. This was the year where they're no longer called the Redskins, they're called the football team, and they finished 7-9.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, the Arizona Cardinals, who were 8-8, missed the playoffs entirely. The Chicago Bears, who were 8-8 because they had the tiebreaker over them, made the playoffs instead. But the Cardinals got a better record than football team. Football team makes the playoffs. I hate football team. That name.
No, I think it's the Commanders. It's Washington.
Yes.
Yeah, but back from 2020, 2021, they were called football team.
Yeah, they were called. Yeah,
They were football team.
yeah, WFT. Yep. Yeah. So now I think going into the rest of this contest, I have to say, oh no, I'll come back. I was going to come back to the Eagles, and I'll come back to that, and I'll say, no. I was going to come back to the Saints. Now, I'll say this: Dave Rangone installed about 6 nifty plays I hadn't seen before. One of them was a really nice job of a simple end around, not end around, I'm sorry, simple sweep. And that was effected with Bijan Robinson. And I believe they have a play fake off of it. That was brand new. And so if the Falcons keep developing plays for their playmakers like that are ball control style, I think they're going to help out their defense really well. Now, I know Ritter made some mistakes, but I think part of it is that the Falcons, this goes to my criticism of the Falcons passing game, they need to pay better attention to spacing in formations. Like, for example, that Texas route that got picked off, That was the most incorrectly designed Texas play I've ever seen in my entire life. They had Robinson coming from out to in too soon. They had the 81 wide receiver going out and then coming in, which isn't how you do it. You have him coming over.
That's actually an undersized tight end. That's actually what's his name?
Yeah. So anyway, you say his name, then I'll say yeah. But anyway, my point is that undersized or not, they had him running the wrong kind of route, and they had them too close together, and they had the whole thing too soon. And so one of my viewers was saying, well, hey, he should have went to the sideline 81. I said, it wouldn't have made any difference because Robinson turned too soon. He couldn't clear the defensive linemen. The defensive linemen are not short. And so what happens is that people draw these plays in two dimensions. They forget, well, you know what? He's got to throw over these folks. And you haven't designed anything where you're staying between them. Now, if he went 2 yards, he being Bijan Robinson, had been instructed to go 2 yards because he's not drawing the plays. He'd been instructed to go 2 yards and then come in. And then 81 had went ahead of him. There's your Texas style. And that would have given him the touchdown he wanted. But as it was, Ritter, because of where he was, the body was positioned, and the velocity in which he threw the ball, caused him to overthrow Robinson, and it quite literally landed right in the Tyrann Mathieu lap. And so, but my point is that the Falcons have to do a much better job of spacing. I think Bill was laughing about that. I want to hear your view on what I just said, Bill.
Yeah, well, I mean, they do a better job doing everything on offense, to be perfectly honest. They have all these explosive playmakers they can't seem to use. But Jonnu Smith is who you're talking about. Is, believe it or not, the shortest of most of the time of the receivers they have, right? Because Drake London is 6'3" and change, like 6'3" and 3/8, I believe. And then you have Kyle Pitts, who's 6'6" and a quarter. So the other tight end, right, who they've never managed to figure out how to use correctly. They have all these playmakers, and Bijan Robinson always at the backfield. They have a lot of guys that if they could just get them in space, whether it be through just little quick screens, there's all these things you can do that should basically turn it into athletes in space where they should just win. And they don't seem to ever do it, or rarely do it. I won't say ever. So the thing that jumped out at me, and yes, there's those two picks that each time it was Matthew, right?
Tyrann.
Matthew got him twice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And partially because he's a veteran who really knows where young quarterbacks want to go with the ball in this situation. He just lurks, right? He just lurks. He leaves whoever he's supposed to cover. Once he realizes the ball's not going there, he knows the progression too, right? So he knows that guy's not going to get to the third progression. Let me go get to who his primary is and go jump around.
But Bill, on that second one, you have to lurk anywhere. It was coming to him.
So that one, right? That one was very easy. The other one required a little bit of work on his behalf. You saw more mistakes really made by the Falcons offense than by the Saints offense. But what you also saw was the Saints' lack of ability to close the deal, particularly in the red zone. And it's good news if you have their place kicker, right? Mr. Grupp is one of the top scoring, if you're once again fantasy focused, one of the top scoring place kickers. I think number 6 or something, top scoring place kickers in the NFL, the undrafted free agent out of Notre Dame. But they lean on him too heavily. He had one miss, but made 5 field goals. But you shouldn't have 5 field goals. Like that's the whole point. It's great for fantasy if you have him on your fantasy team, but it's bad for real football. Yep. If even 2 of those are touchdowns, they win by a decent amount. So they have to do a better job of in the high red zone designing plays that are going to get them in the end zone. And once again, they actually have a good screen game, but they seem not to use it enough. You have maybe the best screen running back in the history of football in Alvin Kamara.
Yep.
I can't think of 2 or 3 running backs I would take over him in the screen game, right? Ever. Pierre Thomas was really good in it too, but he's not Alvin Kamara. I mean, I don't know if I can take anybody over him. It's just a screen back, right? He not only catches the ball beautifully, but knows exactly where to go. That first step,
except
often.
Algiers, I think, is emerging in that category.
Algiers very good, but he can't touch Alvin Kamara as a guy who reads where to go on the screen correctly all the time. Yet, because he's very young. I mean, the guy's just 2 years out of college and was a linebacker, right? Recruited as a linebacker. got converted to running back after he'd been to BYU for 2 years. So Algier is a guy who's still really learning the position to some extent. He played both in high school, obviously, but was a running back only his last couple years of college. But I love him a lot. He's incredibly powerful. Doesn't have the world's greatest vision, but my God, once he sees it and goes, he's tough to bring down. Doesn't have great top end speed, which is why he's always going to be the running back 2 because he's not a guy who's never going to be a home run hitter. But strong, doesn't take no for an answer. If it's 3rd and 2, half the team can hit him. He's getting that 2 yards. So I like Algier a lot in the role that he has. And frankly, that's somebody the Saints could use. Somebody who is that no nonsense, get you 3, get you 2, no matter what running back. They don't have that guy. Kamara's great, but he's better in space and not as great at just running through people's faces.
And now we come to the discussion of Derek Carr. The Saints are not serious about winning because they keep pushing Derek. Once again, Derek he went over 300 yards. I grant you that. But he did not close the deal. Derek has been great between the 20s.
Yep.
He has been aided by in a negative way by a lousy game plan put together by Pete Carmichael. But the simple fact of the matter is the ghost of Jameis Winston lurks. And everybody knows that if you put Jameis in there with the right approach, like Sean Payton had, that the Saints would have beaten the Falcons, if not by 2 touchdowns, then more. Period. End of story.
They'd also be better. They have to be better on defense as well. I mean, they gave up some rather easy
yeah.
plays. I mean, that was not a good defensive performance. I mean, whoever the quarterback is, if you're going to give up some of the plays they gave up, like you saw how differently those 2 defenses performed in the red zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
You saw each time the Falcons come up with a big play on 3rd down in the red zone. And you saw on the other side, the Saints consistently give up easy yards on 3rd down.
Because when Winston was in, and this is something I think is weird about them, Bill, and everybody, and Vinny and PJ, is if you ever notice that when Winston is in, the Pete Carmichael calls fly patterns from the 20s and 30s. He did that to Olave when Winston came over, bless you, and the result was a touchdown. But when Derek Carr is in, they don't do that from the 20s to the 20s and 30s. They'll do it from the 40s and the 30s, but not closer in. For some particular reason, they feel like they have to call the Texas-style routes, the slants, and and other plays of that nature, as they would say on the street. And I wonder why. Now, I'll take another hat and say maybe it's because Jameis Winston throws that kind of pass better. But think about it. If that's the case, and he's more effective at it, and the statistics prove he is with the Saints, then he should be starting. Or they should do a Taysom Hill style routine and pull Derek Carr once they get inside the 30s and put in Jameis Winston.
Well, the other thing I'll say is their offense looked very much dramatically different before Olave goes down, right? Olave gets targeted 9 times, has 7 catches, 114 yards in the first quarter and a half, and then gets hurt. So obviously having Olave and not throwing to people like Keith Kirkwood would have probably made a difference as well. Because frankly, you saw Keith Kirkwood not even know some of the route combinations. You saw him, and he was letting you know it was him. Like he would look back and say, "My bad." So there's no question that some of those things were run at the wrong depth or broke in the wrong direction, didn't read the leverage correctly. So that's also, let's factor that in. And I'm not down on Keith Kirkwood, terrific special teams player, and may be something someday as a wide receiver, but he's not Chris Olave.
No, he's not. But look, Olave, all the receivers have better games with Winston than they did with Carr.
Well, no. Olave never had that kind of performance as Jameis. He had 7 receptions for 114 yards in a quarter and a half.
Right.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about this. I'm talking about if you take the model of play that Jameis Winston has installed, most recently seen when he came in relief for an injured Carr against Minnesota, I'm saying that had Winston had that many turns at bat, Olave's numbers, even in the contest we just saw, would have been better. Okay? I'm sorry, Bill. I am not.
I would like to see proof of that, that he could have produced more than 7 receptions, 114 yards within a quarter and a half.
Easy. That's easy. Easy.
You say easy? I'd like to see it happen. I'd
No,
like to see it
easy.
actually happen.
Easy. I'll go so far as to say he would have had 9. Okay. My point is simply this: you got a guy, because there are a number of times he overthrew Chris Olave. Don't forget, on very makeable throws. All right. I am not sold on Derek Carr with this team in this situation. He's been injured too much.
Sure.
All right.
I'm
He's
not
still
disagreeing
right.
with any of that. I'm
Okay,
just
so
saying that.
whoa. If you're not
Okay.
disagreeing with that, how could you then turn around the next breath and disagree with what I just said about
Because
and say that?
it sounds a little extraordinary to say to me that he would have had more than 114 yards receiving in a quarter.
That's not extraordinary given the performance, given the plays, given
Uh-huh.
this unusual for Pete Carmichael desire, which I thought was cool, to attack using the same play call and then flipping it around, right, from left to right. All right. I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. Bless you. So my point is, again, I'm tired of seeing failure and then for the good of the team having to cover up for and all this. Derek is not in the position he needs to be in. He is a coach killer. And if they keep him in, that's precisely what's going to happen by the end of the year. Okay.
I could also say by the same token that some of the coaches have been Derek Carr killers, but okay, whichever. The coaching's been bad. Are you gonna dispute me on that?
Can I jump in here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course.
please do.
Yeah.
Okay, with the coaching question, if the coaching continues with the Saints, could we see coaching change at the end of the year where Dennis Allen gets fired?
I think it's possible that the Saints do not make the playoffs, especially in that weak division. I think there is definitely a real chance Dennis Allen is shown the door. And if not Dennis Allen, at least Pete Carmichael, at least maybe some of the assistant coaches potentially.
But for me, I'll tell you, I thought Dennis Allen should have shown the door after last season. And okay, I thought that was it. But for some reason, best known to his ability to talk his way into a coaching job, i.e., hey, look, I can get you Derek Carr. And that undoubtedly factored into why he was retained. Undoubtedly, okay? I think he was able to hang on, but then he kept Jameis Winston for insurance rather than just simply building the team around him and just calling it a day. And look, let's face it, a lot of this stuff is happening for reasons that are trumped up about Jameis, that are not his fault, off the field, that have been proven, that in the case regarding Florida State that I mentioned, Florida State's going to wind up collecting their $950,000 back. That's another story. But my point is, it's also in the past. You got to win. This is now. You don't have time, to figure out and do revisionist history on everything and re-educate people. Just go with what's going on the field, make your changes, and be done with it. Having said all that logical stuff, if you take a look 7,000 feet over or 70,000 feet over at the same situation, there's a lot of weird stuff that's happening with that team and how they handle issues by the ton. And I don't understand what ownership is doing. I don't understand why you look at the organization, they have no African-American representation in the front office. 0. Okay, they got one woman, all white men, all over.
Not exactly true because Kai Harley's still there.
Well, okay, then show me the picture because I can do that right now. Show me the picture of the Saints front office. They don't show anybody black. I can do it.
Kai Harley's still black. I mean,
I can show you, but show me the picture though.
Yes, if you want to see a picture of Kai Harley, I can give you one.
No, Bill. Show me. I have the picture of the entire Saints front office. Okay, and I'll show that to you right now because I'm tired.
Right.
I don't know if
Kai Harley's still black, and he's still.
I want to see if
he's the vice president of football administration. I'm looking at him now, and he's still Kai Harley.
But he's not put in the Saints front office photograph. He is not there.
Okay.
And so no, I'm not taking that.
And he's working there. He's still got the job. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say to that.
I want you to stop gaslighting me when you know I'm making a point about
gaslighting. He has the job. He's working there. I don't understand what point you're trying to make.
He is not on the front picture with the Saints. He is not there. Okay.
Okay.
He's not there. There's nobody black. There's all white guys and one woman. All right.
We're not disagreeing.
Well, then why say that in the middle of what I'm
saying? That they do have someone who is in their front office. That's all.
I'm saying that they don't have anybody that they show that's in their front office. I'm talking about the optics. That's there for a reason. Okay.
Sure. Okay.
And I can put up one with the Raiders like that and show you the difference. I am tired of this. I'm tired of this thing that we do as folks who look like us who defend racism. These folks
I'm
are
not
racist.
defending racism. I'm just saying the man works there.
But my point is that
speaking.
they don't show him. They put him. They're not showing him up there, and they have the Saints put the picture of their front office people. All right, and again, that picture of front office folks is all white male and one woman, and they do it. And I've written the Saints about this. They've done nothing about it. It goes on and on and on and on and on, and it is absolutely nonsensical to have this situation, continue as it has. And as I say that, I will show you right now what I'm talking about. Since I found the picture and I've saved it for keeping here, and it's here. And it's tragic, and it's insulting to the NFL to have this sort of optic go on like that. You see what I'm talking about? Where is he? Okay, nowhere. All right, this is who the Saints choose to show. It's their choice. It's their choice. I can pull up the Raiders like this, like that. Okay, big difference with the Raiders. Right now, and they have a front office that's the president is African American female, coach is black, and the general manager is black.
Right,
okay,
yes. I'm very aware of the
Raiders
organization.
And my point is that the Raiders front office, by contrast, okay, is more along the lines of the modern NFL team that you want to see, where everybody looks like they can have an opportunity. It's a meritocracy,
now do the Cowboys. I mean, let's not pretend that the Saints are the exception. The Saints are the rule.
I'm not talking. But I'm talking.
The Raiders are the exception.
But I'm
let's be clear with what we're talking about.
What I'm talking about. I am talking about. Actually, you're throwing the Buccaneers as being not the exception anymore. My point is, I am talking about right now the Saints. Okay.
Sure.
All right. And I don't understand again why gaslight me.
I'm not gaslighting. I'm saying that they're doing better than some teams. There are teams who are worse than the Saints. There are teams that have nobody with a vice president or
anybody. My question is, why is it so necessary to disagree with me and just let me make my point and go on?
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm making factual points. Like there's teams that are worse. There are teams with a worse record.
Right, Vinny and PJ, does it sound like I'm being disagreed with or agreed with? What do you think?
Can we just move on to a different topic,
I'm
please?
disagreeing with one
point. I
want
to talk about this.
There's teams.
I really do.
That there's teams. If you're going to pick on teams, there's teams that have nobody with a executive level, who are people of color, with no one with an executive level position. My point is the Saints at least have one. There's some that have zero.
The reason why I talk about this is because it's wrong to have a league where all the players and most of them are black, and you have this thing where it looks like the people in manager positions are white, and you watch television, and they never mentioned at all who the offensive coordinator is. They always make it seem like the players themselves are making up the team, the playbook, and everybody talks about the player designs this and everything.
Yes, I will say that, because I find that with some people, like I argue a lot with Kevin Gallagher online, and Bill knows my discussions with him aren't exactly the smoothest. But he's someone that puts all the blame on everything on the players, because his perspective is, I watch every single game that's ever been played in human history. Okay, maybe not like that, but he's so uptight about watching every single thing possible. He's so big. He's so big because he's gone to them live. Therefore, his experience in understanding things is higher than yours, apparently, for some reason. But essentially, what he's saying is, like, he's someone that feels like it's always the player's fault, because the player executes and everything like that. The players aren't that smart if they don't understand the play as much as some others. The player should do everything because he blames everything on players. He blames literally everything on players. And if anyone blames things on coaches, they're just scapegoating. That's his perspective. And I'm here to say to him that's completely wrong because a lot of the times, more often than not, it's the coaches and their assistants that come up with the play calls and the schemes and the play design. And they need the players to, yes, you also need players to follow through with that, but sometimes they have to be on key or else they might not be even on the team.
Right, and something else, but I want to add to this too, because I'm really pointed about this. There's a reason the National Football League has had, and I've been there, and you want to see the videos right here, all you have to do is type Zenny62 on YouTube, NFL, and Minority Symposium. And I've interviewed the coaches that have been there, some fantastic assistants. And they do it because these coaches don't get enough exposure to people to make decisions. That's the theory, okay? But the reality is you have some people like, I'm not even going to bother to sugarcoat it. And I like Jerry Jones, but then Jerry says, well, hey, if they want to, he claims he didn't say this. I'm not going to repeat that. My point is this. We have a management problem. It should be meritocracy. If you're the best, you get the chance. All right.
Sure.
If you're the best, you get the chance. And
Yes.
that should be everybody in the United States. We call this an American country, like a great country it is, should want that model. And they should be very upset when any person's getting it just because they look a certain way and they don't even have the right knowledge or background and their approaches. They're
Right.
allowed to call up, right?
Or they're married to Bill Parcells' daughter, or a whole long list of
stuff
reasons.
like that.
Right.
Yeah,
I'll tell you
I
one of the
agree with that completely.
I'll tell you, hold on a second, Vinny. I'll tell you one of the biggest compliments I ever got. 2004, I was in Houston at the Lee Steinberg Super Bowl party, and I came up and I was talking with John Gruden about a particular play, and Bruce Allen sauntered by out of the blue. Didn't even see this coming. John points at me, he yells out loud to Bruce, goes, Bruce, don't you think he'd make a great general manager? And I was like, whoa. And this is like, almost I got 30 people looking at me at once. All right. So I really appreciate when people do that. And it tells me how people get their jobs and how it's supposed to be. So for anybody that says, oh, John's racist or anything, I'll say, wait. Okay. But see, my point is I've seen a number of cases in the league where that's not true. And I can go way back to the 90s when I was working with certain people at the Raiders, okay? And it at some point, this dizziness has got to stop. Because what happens, you have people who grow up who think that they're supposed to get something because of the way they look. And you have others who think that because of the way they look, they're never going to get anything. And that idea has got to be destroyed. It is, you hear me, Bill? It has got to be destroyed.
Right. And it starts with ownership, which here's what I will say. Not that it's one of those things where it's the great, El Haj Malik Al-Shabazz remark about if you put a foot long knife in my back and pull it out 6 inches and call it progress, I'm going to say it's not progress. Take the knife all the way out of my back and we'll start talking. But we now have, the Pagulas, we have Shad Khan, and then the ownership group of the Broncos is the most diverse so far, and then we've got Magic Johnson now. So it's better than it's ever been before,
better.
but
absolutely,
but it's still bad, right?
Right.
And there are at least, I would say now over half of the teams in the NFL now have at least one person of color at the executive level, senior executive level, person who's a director or vice president or things like that. But still, almost half have none. And I'm pointing out you're picking on a team that has at least one. There are teams that have zero. If we're going to pick on teams, we can pick on teams that have nobody of color anywhere at their senior executive level. So I'm saying if you want to set somebody on fire, set the ones on fire that are doing nothing.
But Bill, and I know what you choose. There are two teams, but some of those teams, have no problem having a black quarterback starting, and they don't go through the machinations that the Saints go through with it. And they've been through a lot. Okay, it's really weird with them. It really is. And so all I'm saying is, we're talking about the Saints and why they've got Winston sitting on the bench and he can do the job, and they're not playing him. So it's just a weird thing, you know. I don't know what the explanation is. All I know is this: if we truly believe in the Lord, and we truly believe in what is right, this situation's got to be solved. I mean, straight up, you know, and that's it. I'm sorry, John Marks. He said, "Move on." No, you know, I mean, you prefer? Could you imagine me doing the B and talking like this? All right. Yeah, I didn't think so. So my point is, because the B wouldn't like it either. My point. All right. So my point is that that's why I like other teams, the Bills, for example. Even again, I met a lot of these folks. So yes, some of these teams don't have anybody black, but all I know is that they have been very nice to me. All right, and I can tell you teams that have one or two that have been racist. So it's not a perfect situation, and it is getting better. You're absolutely right about that. But I'm saying with respect to the Saints, there's some weird stuff going on. That is all.
Oh yeah, I don't disagree. It is definitely getting better, and I think in many instances there are things that I care about that are getting better. That being said, just because something is better doesn't mean it's good. For instance, vaping may be safer and better for you than smoking, but that doesn't mean vaping is good for you. I think of it stuff like that. In this instance, yes, it is better that there is a bit more accountability. It's better that there's a bit more nuance in these discussions. That being said, it's still not good. In many instances, it is very piss poor. And I do think the NFL does need to do a better job. I mean, in fact, that's why the Rooney Rule happened, because they basically force them to do it. But even then, that's sometimes teams could find ways around it because they want to take the easy way out. I mean,
yeah. The PJ, you want to have a last word before we change subjects?
Yeah. I just thinking about everything. I mean, with all y'all said, I mean,
That doesn't look good.
I don't know exactly where I stand because I'm still trying to with the race issue. I have so many different views on it, which contradict each other. Even
okay.
I think with the Rooney Rule, I mean, yeah, it's helping, but you know, it's basically forcing. If we were to take that away, would it be better?
It would be worse.
No, it would be way worse.
A lot worse. Yeah.
I think it'd be way worse because if you didn't have the Rooney Rule, I completely understand the question of, you know, oh, it's not their right to do it. I get it. But at the same time, I know for a fact that if such a rule was not implemented, I guarantee you wouldn't have situations where, I don't know if the Rooney Rule would have. I don't know if someone like Mike Tomlin would have been added if it was not for the Rooney Rule. I don't know if you'd have all these other people from different perspectives get in. I mean, this is why the Rooney Rule is important. Now, is it perfect? No, nothing is. I mean, there's some flaws with it. Sometimes there still isn't enough, and they even added the compensatory picks for the teams. I think it's like the teams where they come from if they get hired, and you know that's big, and it also gives an incentive in many ways. But even then, sometimes I feel like it's a bit of a Band-Aid over a gashing wound. Like maybe it has to be done like culturally. Maybe they need an owner, but at the same time, you know, if you have a black owner, other black players going to be respected to it. Like Troy Vincent was a player for many years, but a lot of players now see him as a traitor because they see him as, oh, he works for the owners now. So a lot of them view him as a traitor, which is a shame too, because I don't think that's a good way. I would celebrate that in reality, but they see him because you work for the owners, you're a traitor towards us, and it's either I win everything or I get nothing. It's just too much nonsense. Honestly, that's my thoughts on it.
Well, moving along to the next subject. The next subject is
The
okay.
Patriots.
Folks, Yeah, go ahead. You said
The
it, Vinny.
Patriots Giants game. Long are the days for when I would see the games, these wonderful Super Bowls with Eli Manning defeating Tom Brady's teams, and the games where, Boston versus New York, you have the Belichick connection. You always have them against each other in preseason. This is not one of those games. This is not one of those classic games. This has got to be one of the very worst performances of the last decade, at least, in terms of just offense. Because if you look at total QBR, Tommy DeVito and Mac Jones had a QBR of sub 10. Tommy DeVito has 7.4.
Oh,
At
oh,
7.2. Yeah,
oh, that's
that bad.
Oh
That
God!
bad. By the way, in case you're wondering, the
Oh.
maximum is 100. 7 for both of them. Mac Jones himself was horrible.
Yes.
He was god awful. He threw 3 interceptions.
Yep.
3 of them. One,
Who,
2,
who
3.
lost that game? Because I didn't see the score of
The
that game.
Giants. but
Everyone lost that game.
Yeah,
but
everybody,
the-
thank you. Yeah.
The Giants, who now are
What
in
is
third,
effect of the Sixers? No Cheerios for them.
but
You had
the
Mac
Giants did
Jones,
score more
who-
points.
Mac Jones went 12 for 21, 89 yards, and 2 interceptions.
Yep.
And then you had Bailey Zappi. Jones got benched the 4th time this year. Yes, but 4th time this year, Mac Jones was benched. And then Bailey Zappi came in for a performance of 9 for 14, 54 yards, and an interception. Give some credit to the rushing game, because you had Ramondre Stevenson with 21 carries, 98 yards, and a touchdown.
Yep.
And Ezekiel Elliott, 9 carries and 46 yards. They could have easily tied the game, but Chase Ryland had a chance to tie the game.
Yep.
10-10 to overtime, and they didn't do it.
They should have never let Nick Folk leave their organization. Nick Folk's having a great bounce back year, and Chad Ryland's starting to struggle.
Mhm, yeah.
This was what I called the Bet the Under Bowl.
Mhm.
And if you did, as I advised you, hammered the under, you can collect your winnings.
Yes. Now let's give some credit to the Giants. Tommy DeVito was definitely the better. He wasn't great. He had some
Yes.
weirdly passes. Like he was 17 for 25, 121 yards and a touchdown. Okay, not bad, but also not good though, considering he had a lot of bad movements and he got allowed too many sacks. And their offensive line's terrible. Jalen Hyatt, 109 yards,
Yep.
not bad. Isaiah Hodges got a touchdown.
Yep.
And give some credit to Randy Bullock. He actually scored a field goal. I'm trying to find positives for both of these.
Both defenses played well.
Oh yeah. Both defenses played amazing. I'm going to give credit to the defenses
Yep.
of the Giants, because the Giants defense has played great this year. The Patriots defense, definitely one of its best performances of the year.
Yeah.
Also, just like the Colts game, only allowed 10 points. Also, just like the Colts.
Or was it a case of basically both offenses being so bad that it was easy for defense to play well?
Well, I mean,
That's-
obviously a little bit
yes.
of both. Well, a lot
Yes,
of
that's
both.
true.
a lot of both. These were
Definitely both. I would probably
tremendously
agree with
bad-
Zenny more so. It was more
tremendously-
bad.
yeah,
It was
bad
more.
offense, yes. But,
The defense was good, but it
but
was
defense
more.
good, yeah.
It was more bad offense. The offense was awful, especially in the passing game. And the real question I have, and a lot of people have been wanting this too, is this the end of Bill Belichick with New England?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so too.
very much so.
Yeah.
he's costing them money. Sponsors are going to start dropping them locally.
Can they
Yeah.
flex? I know they
It-
can. I want them to flex the Thursday night game against the Steelers because god, Kenny Pickett. Now now the Steelers are 7-4, but they're not exactly the most exciting team. And you have the Patriots, who are they are by far the worst team in the AFC. They need to flex that game right now. I don't want to see that.
That's right. Hey, so we're at 54-minute mark, and we're looking at Monday Night Football. Tomorrow, anybody has a thought they want to share? And by the way, does anyone want to talk about the fact that the Broncos,
Let's
PJ
ride.
Fist, Are the Broncos back, PJ?
Oh, I think so. In the beginning of the season, I said that the Broncos were going to go to the playoffs, and I was told by Raider fans that the Raiders were going to go to the playoffs, and I questioned the Raiders because of Jimmy Garoppolo always getting hurt. And I was like, no, the Broncos are going to go to the playoffs. They're 6-5,
Yep.
and they could pass the Chiefs and go to be the AFC West champion. Now, obviously, still a little early, little bit, but
Early, yeah.
there is a chance because Denver is only 2 games back from the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Broncos, they have a chance to be the AFC West champions once again after 7 years. There's a chance. I really do believe it. I think the Broncos are back.
I think the Broncos are a team that will definitely contend for a wild card. But the only issue is that if this was the NFC, yes, I would agree with you because the NFC is a lot weaker than the AFC. However, the AFC is so tough. It is so.
You're right. You are right. But
like,
you gotta
you have 12 you have like 12, 13 teams that are competing for 7 spots. And the Broncos in particular are in that weird mush between the Texans, the Bills, the Colts, the Browns, the Steelers, like the Raiders, the Chargers. Now, I think personally that listen, the Broncos handle their business, and looking at their upcoming schedule, they're against the Texans in Houston. They're against the Chargers in Los Angeles, which is basically a home game for them.
Right.
Then you have the game against the Lions, which will probably be a primetime game on Saturday.
Yep.
Then you have the Christmas Eve game against the Patriots.
Yeah.
Can they flex that to like earlier in the morning? Because I'd much rather have Lions Vikings as the night game for Christmas Eve. Like, if this is unless this is like the early 2010s Patriots and Broncos, that game is going to be so tough to watch if you're a Patriots fan.
Go ahead. Sorry,
and then you have the game against the Chargers where you're at home on New Year's Eve. And then finally, of January 7th, the last game of the season, you're against the Raiders in Las Vegas. I think this team could be like low end. I could see. I mean, I think I could see them winning half of these and then losing half of these for like a 9-8 season. You know, that's a win. That's a really good impression. I mean, and that might just be good enough for the 7 seed in the AFC, but they might just miss out.
Yeah, I think looking at the Broncos schedule at the beginning, it looked like Broncos could have a very favorable schedule. Definitely hard in the beginning, and then a little more easier as the season went on. Now, when the Broncos first started their season and went 0-3, I was like, am I wrong about the Broncos going to the playoffs because of how bad they were? And I think everybody would say that. Everybody was like, we had high expectations for the Denver Broncos in the beginning of the season. We were like, they're going to go playoffs. And then they just start losing game after game after game after game. And I think when they hit that Miami game, that was the Broncos' rock bottom. That was like that was their worst loss that I think they've ever had.
Yes,
it is the worst loss they've ever had.
It's the second worst loss
in the
NFL. So yes, it's the worst loss in their franchise history.
I'm going to need to leave you, but please keep going. Fantastic conversation. I got to go and take care of something, but for me, okay, thank you. I'll see you. Okay.
Yeah, so you're correct. It is just like factually the worst loss in Broncos history, but the fact that they've been able to rebound from that is
right.
And I can't believe they were saying, "Oh, Sean Payton can't actually coach." It's like the same people that say that Belichick actually wasn't a good coach because Brady's not there. Like,
Well,
I mean-
Belichick's still a good coach. He's just a worse and worse GM. And
What-
yeah.
What
I'm
I'll
talking
say
about-
this
I'm not talking about
about-
you. I'm talking about the talking heads that say that he actually isn't a good coach.
Yeah, with Denver, they're now 6-5, and I did say earlier, KC might be finding their mojo back, but I mean, they starting with the Denver game, they've been awful in the fourth quarter up until today. Until today when they play the Raiders. So, I mean, the Broncos are behind the Chiefs by 2 games. It's a very favorable schedule for the Broncos. I could see them winning out. I really could. Because of Detroit, I have a little bit of an issue with that game. I struggle with that game a little bit because of how good Detroit is. And we're seeing that throughout the season. Detroit's just throwing everybody off of their track.
Right. They're the class of their division, obviously.
Yeah, the Lions, I think, will still win their division, though I do think they will. I'm seeing a bit of hiccups from them recently. I like the way I look at the NFC. It's the Eagles and the Niners. Those are easily your top 2. Then below that, you have the tier of the Cowboys and the Lions.
Right.
You have that other tier that's like a tier below them. It's like these playoff contending sort of teams, like the Vikings and maybe the Rams, but I'm not really sure about that.
Seahawks, maybe.
The Seahawks,
Yeah.
whoever finishes first in the South, maybe the Packers. And then you got your mid teams and you got your ass teams, and then you have the Panthers, but you're in the super ass category because they are
which
so
they're
bad.
1-9 now today.
No, 1-10.
Now they're 1-10.
Oh,
yeah.
1-10. Okay.
Their only win was a last second field goal against the Texans.
Yep.
That was their only victory this entire season. And the real question I have is, are they going to clean house? I have a real question on that.
I think regarding that with the Panthers, I'm a big believer, and I've been like this forever. And Vinny, you and I have had conversations about this on the phone. Is regarding head coaches, they need to at least be a part of the team for 2 years to be able to learn their teams, get their guys in there to have a chance to succeed in the 3rd year.
Right.
Yeah.
Because basically your first year, you're dealing with you're inheriting everybody that you got the previous year from the previous coaching staff.
Yeah.
And then second year, you're starting to get people in there, but it's basically half and half of the last staff, half of the new staff. And so, yeah, the Panthers are awful. And did I think they were going to be awful? No, not really.
I actually picked the Panthers to be a competitive team in their division, honestly.
Did you?
Right.
I did. Yes, I actually picked the Panthers to be like they be a team that could finish 2nd or 3rd in their division.
Oh,
like 2nd or 3rd in their division. I saw them as like a team that'd be like a 7-10 team. I saw them as a team. I saw them as a team that could be like 6-11, 7-10.
I didn't think it'd be this bad. My prediction was 4-13, and it looks like I might have been too kind as well. But
I was rarely too kind. You were extremely kind. No, I was extremely kind. You were very kind. They are.
Yeah.
Now I agree with you. I don't know if I'd really want to fire Frank Reich after this year, but I also got to look at it and what's likely to happen as well.
Yeah.
Honestly,
and
the problem is that you're slowing the development of a young quarterback if you now change the system again. So now you're basically making him a rookie 2 years in a row.
And he has not had a good year. And I feel bad for Bryce Young because he's just not in a good situation.
He's in a bad situation. And okay, so if you get rid of Frank Reich, who has a really good development background with young quarterbacks, who else are you going to get that's good or better? I mean, I'm a big fan of course, I've mentioned his name a lot, Alphonso Pep Hamilton. I think he's one of the best young quarterback developers in the league. who's currently not working, like currently not. He's working. He's doing television, so he's there for anybody who wants him, which is shocking to me. But it's a guy that will help develop Andrew Luck at Stanford. He also worked with Luck with the Colts. He helped to develop the guy we're watching right here, Justin Herbert. He was Justin Herbert's quarterback coach when Herbert ended up starting unexpectedly, right? Tyrod Taylor's getting all the starter snaps, getting all the snaps of the ones, and Herbert's running the scout team. He's the number 2 guy. And then, of course, the unfortunate needle incident where the punctured lung happens. The guy that guided him through that is Pep Hamilton. Pep Hamilton also worked with what's his name with the Texans?
J.J.
In his
Stroud?
best year. No,
Yeah.
before Stroud.
Deshaun Watson?
No, between the two. From Stanford.
Davis Mills?
Yes, he worked with Davis Mills in Davis Mills' best year as a starter, and of course, his only full year as a starter. But the guy that helped him to look halfway decent, well, I think it was Pep Hamilton. Pep Hamilton has GM experience from his time in the XFL, where he was a GM and a head coach of their Washington franchise. And I think at very least someone should bring him in as an offensive coordinator. I would hope perhaps my Steelers would make that call, but whatever. The point is that if you fire Frank Reich, you better know who you're getting, and they better be really good at working with young quarterbacks.
Yeah,
there's only a handful of guys that are good at working with young quarterbacks.
Right. I'd rather have him as a coach than Arthur Smith right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you look at the different head coaches around the league, and there's these hires that you question, like, why would you make this hire? And then there's others that, I could see it, but then they start struggling, and you're like, okay, now what do we do? Like with Frank Reich, you're like, okay, well, now what do we do? And then, it was kind of like the Broncos last year where they hired Nathaniel Hackett, and then Nathaniel Hackett just struggled, and they didn't recover. And one thing is, I love the Broncos' new ownership, because the new ownership was not going to be patient, and they're like, we're going to go into win now mode. And they're like, we're going to get rid of this coaching staff, which normally I didn't agree with, but then seeing what happened with the Rams game, I'm like, yeah, but get rid of him, fire him. Right. And so will there be, I think quite a few coaches you look at are going to be let go. Arthur Smith being one of those. And then
we're looking at one right now who's probably gone, right?
Right.
We talked about Staley. And I never understood what the attraction to Brandon Staley was kind of in the first place. The Rams had a decent defense, but they weren't doing anything truly exciting or innovative. They just had really good players on defense.
Yeah. They have really good players.
I mean, really, really good players on defense. And he mostly kept it fairly simple and basic. I never quite got, I tracked Brandon Staley's career from the time he was a quarterback at Dayton, right? I've watched him. It was a pretty decent little quarterback at Dayton, right? The Flyers, shout out to the Flyers of Dayton. So I've watched this guy from his days as a college quarterback, and how quickly it was shocking to me how quickly he made the jump from being a guy who literally is like a D3, assistant coach, just pushed up through the ranks as quickly as he was. It's amazing to me. And he's clearly in and over his head. And I think he might someday be a good head coach, but that day is not today.
No.
So there's a lot of guys who get pushed up for whatever reason, while I could think of a long list of coaches like Deuce Staley, who never seems to get a real shot. Guys like Eric Studesville, who never get a really good shot. You're a Broncos fan, right?
Right.
Then you're familiar with Coach Studesville, right? He was the interim head coach of the Broncos for a short period when they fired. He wasn't fired. He died, right? No, what was it? No, it was when was
trying to think? Yeah, I can't.
But Studesville's been a interim head coach twice. No, it was with the Dolphins when Sperano died, and then it was when somebody got fired with the Broncos. So he's twice been an interim head coach, but has never really been a serious candidate for a head coaching position. And I I think it's the fact that he's never been a coordinator. He's been a run game coordinator, but never an offensive coordinator. But the fact is that he's a terrific coach. He's highly respected, been around the league forever. Same thing I just said about Deuce Staley, who has also been an associate head coach. I don't know if he's ever been an interim, but he's been an associate head coach. He's been a highly respected running backs coach and run game coordinator. And if you're going to get Brandon Staley, a head coaching shot, I don't understand how Eric Studesville doesn't get one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, you look at the different head coaches, like Brandon Staley, and then somebody with Arthur Smith or before Arthur Smith, who we were talking about. Oh, I can't remember.
Well, we were mentioning guys that probably should not have a job next year. We mentioned Brandon Staley. We mentioned Arthur Smith. I think somebody mentioned – obviously Belichick, I think, gets to finish out at least this year, and I think they have to have a hard conversation about him just being a head coach. I think if he's willing to just be a head coach, they might bring him back as a head coach and
I don't know.
somebody else as a GM.
I struggle with of course I'm a little biased. Okay, I'm a little biased here, but I can't see Bill Belichick being with New England at all. I can't see it because of what my belief is Tom Brady made both Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels.
Josh McDaniels. Sorry, that's who got fired, and he was interim head coach. It was
Right.
Josh McDaniels. So he's been an interim head coach with both the Broncos and the and it was tragic with the Dolphins because that was when Sperano suddenly died. But I know everyone wants the young guy for whatever reason. The thing is young. Who's the next 37-year-old we can go out and hire? And of course, Kevin O'Connell's doing a decent job and things like that. But it bothers me a little bit when I see guys who have sometimes a quarter century or more worth of NFL coaching experience, and they get passed over because they're not the new exciting shiny toy, I guess.
Well,
but it just
sorry, I think with coaches being in the league, we talked. I don't know if it's something, if they're doing something. If coaches do get interviewed and then they get passed up, I have to wonder if it's something that they're doing in the interview process that's getting them that teams aren't hiring them.
People use that excuse with Eric Bieniemy for a really long time, right? That he must not interview well. And I've talked to people who've been in the room when he interviews, and they said he's very direct, he's very truthful, he's a straight shooter. So I guess maybe some people don't like that kind of honesty, if that's what you're saying. But
what do you mean by shooter? Like what did he say that's very direct?
He tells you which positions on your team are bad. He'll say these guys are bad, these guys are good. Like he doesn't sugarcoat stuff. He's very direct.
You mean like me when I say Hall of Fame takes?
I mean, he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't. He's probably not quite to that extent, but he does tell you this guy isn't good enough. He'll tell you this guy's not good enough, right? He'll say you need to get rid of this guy. This guy's not good enough.
It makes no sense why Eric Bieniemy's not getting the head coaching position with any team. I'm like, why is he? Is it? I mean,
you want me to be honest with you, for both of you? The main reason why I want to see Bieniemy get a head coaching job is so that way everyone can finally just stop talking about why he deserves a head coaching job.
Yeah. No, I agree.
At this point, everyone knows he's deserving. Just give him a head coaching job so I can finally stop hearing about this already. Yeah. It's driving me nuts. Seriously.
I think maybe, and this is just me being, looking at Eric Bieniemy. I don't know if it's maybe because teams wanted to see him outside of Kansas City with Mahomes and Andy Reid, and that very possibly could be why. But also
stop Matt Nagy from getting hired.
But really, what is Kansas City doing? They're struggling themselves.
They missed Eric Bieniemy. That's part of it,
right? Exactly.
And obviously, Tyreek Hill and things like that. But they won a Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill. They haven't won one yet, at least without Bieniemy. But like I said, this will be the year that'll be that proof of the pudding in terms of that. He has certainly helped Sam Howell. Sam Howell is a raw but talented quarterback. They have 2 young wide receivers I really like. They have an old tight end who's pretty productive still. Well, old, but veteran tight end in Logan Thomas is still pretty productive. Their offensive line isn't great, and they've had to work around the fact they don't have a great offensive line, which has hurt their running game because they wanted to be a play action team, but they've struggled to run the football. So they've actually lead the NFL in pass attempts, which is not the kind of team they wanted to be. Sam Howell is the number 1 guy in dropbacks, right? He's dropped back to throw the ball more than any other quarterback in the whole NFL. And that's not what you want in a guy who's technically speaking, a second-year quarterback, but was, not a starter most of last year. So he's still essentially a rookie in terms of number of starts. I think he's going to get to his 17th start, not this week, maybe next. I think he started 4 or 5 games last year. But the issues that they have are more roster construction, in my opinion, at least on offense, are more roster construction than they are execution and scheme. On defense,
it's a different story.
They've got some talent. Obviously, they moved on from Montez Sweat at the trading deadline, but talent's not an issue. That's a well-constructed group. They lost Cole Holcomb to free agency. He joined the Steelers and then got hurt. But they've got some issues, I think, schematically in what they're doing on defense. The defense is not a talent issue. And on offense, it is mostly roster construction. Their offensive line has about 2 solid, like these guys are good. Like you can build around these 2. And then the other 3 guys they run out there are guys that probably should be depth pieces.
Right.
And you were right about Sam Howell pass attempts.
I know. He's run the ball more than anybody.
These are the top 5. Tua, 377. Pat Mahomes, 377.
Yep.
Josh Allen, 382. Jared Goff, 405. Sam Howell, 486.
Yep. By far, number 1.
Wow.
And that's not the kind of team they were supposed to be. So they're throwing the ball.
Now, granted, fortunately for Howell, like he's leading the league in passing yards, 3,339. I mean, you better lead in passing yards if you're leading the league in attempts.
Right. He's a pretty good fantasy quarterback. He's not quite a good reality quarterback yet. His decision-making, like so many young quarterbacks, is still spotty and shaky. But you can see he's got the talent. Talent's not an issue. So a lot of my Washington –
you described him like he's very like build. He looks just like Baker Mayfield. He looks
right with a stronger arm. He's basically Baker Mayfield with a stronger arm.
Yeah,
and he can make throws that Baker tries to make but shouldn't try to make.
Well, one was the number 1 pick. The other one was a 5th round pick.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
With talking about Sam Howell and Eric Bieniemy. Okay, is there a chance? And I'm just guessing here. Maybe not. I don't know. Is there a chance that Ron Rivera gets let go?
Sure. So the last
and then could Eric Bieniemy then take over? I mean, that's definitely
he'll get the interim. Right, he'll get the interim spot.
He'll finally get his chance to be a head coach now.
At least as an interim. So I think the next few weeks, the next 3 weeks really determine the fate of Ron. Let's say they win the next 3 games. Rivera is at least in position to finish out the year at that point, right? If they lose the next 3 games, I think he's done at that point, and Bieniemy gets to finish out as interim, and they basically audition him at that point to stay on as at least in consideration. He'll be interviewed anyway, but to actually get a chance to be the head coach next year. He certainly has done a lot on offense. I mean, their offense has been very productive, despite that their running game has been sort of stuck in the mud because of their poor offensive line.
Right.
They still, I mean, they really wanted to pass the ball about 120 to 130 times less than they're doing it. They wanted to be, like I said, run and play action. Oh, Zay Flowers is gone. You're not catching him from behind. But yeah,
I'm looking
at the Commanders' schedule. Next week they're against the Dolphins. They host them. Then they have a very late bye. Like they have the latest bye week in the league.
Yep, they do.
And then they're against the Rams in Los Angeles.
Is it week 13?
Next week is week 13. Yes.
Oh.
Then you have the bye week.
Then the bye week. Yep.
Week 14. Then This is week 12.
It's week 12. Sorry, I meant their bye is during week 14.
14. Okay.
Yeah.
So if they win week 13, then they get the bye, and then I mean,
Then there goes the
bad-
Rams, the Jets, the Niners, and the
So
Cowboys.
a bad loss in the next game could bring the curtain down, right? If it's a bad loss, like one
yeah,
where the coach-
they got destroyed against the Cowboys in the fourth one.
well, I mean,
Yes!
that's
Woo! Sorry.
yeah, well, that's right, but that's a talent gap thing. Like
yeah.
they could have had the best plan as coaches in the world, and it still would have been closer loss, but that. There's no amount of coaching that would have made
Yeah.
up for the gap between those
Right.
two teams.
Rams and Jets, it feels like that can go really either way. I mean, Rams can go either way. Jets, they can beat. Okay, Niners is again talent gap, and again their
Right.
final game also against the Cowboys.
So if they go 2-1 in the next 3 weeks, I think they at least let Rivera finish the season, see what happens. If
Yeah.
they are 0-3 at that point, I think Rivera's done, and they let Eric Bieniemy finish the season.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna win around I think in the final 5 games they'll win 1 to 2 games. Yes, I see them either going 1-4 or 2-3 to finish the season because the Jets you could beat in theory.
Yeah.
Sure.
Rams
That's just
you
in theory.
could
They could beat him in practice.
yes, you can beat him in practice.
I mean, no offense to Tim Boyle, but Tim
No.
Boyle you can get to. You can make some
Yeah.
big passes.
Oh, yeah.
You
for
can
sure.
beat the Jets. Rams that can go either way. Dolphins, even though they are a division leading team, they're going to win their division. But Niners and Cowboys, unless the Cowboys are resting their guys in the final week of the season, I can't see them beating the Cowboys.
No.
Right.
Well, and I don't know. For me, I just can't see them losing or winning against the Dolphins. I mean, Dolphins are just too good. Dolphins are
See, the funny thing is about the
second
Dolphins,
place.
right? But the Dolphins also don't have a single win against a team with a winning record.
That's
so,
true.
Really?
So they're
So same
They
as the
don't.
Cowboys.
yes, correct.
They're against now Christmas Eve, like a 4:00 game, assuming he doesn't get flexed or anything to the night game. They will be the battle of which team will win. Cowboys Dolphins, a rematch of Super Bowl VI. Yes.
Right.
Super
So
Bowl
unless
VI.
there's a tie, one of them will at least have a win with a team with a winning record at that point.
I'll take the Cowboys on that one. Well,
yeah, in theory, but at the same time, the Dolphins are good too. Like that's gonna be a good game.
Well,
I'd much
yeah,
rather
but
have that
for,
than
for me, I think
Patriots.
the
Broncos.
defense decides it, and I like the Cowboys defense better than I like the
Yeah.
Dolphins defense.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the defense in this case decides it. Yeah, I think by far in theory they should win it. But the Commanders, can they beat the Rams? I mean, the Rams looked really good today, but it's against the Cardinals. Last week they barely won against the Seahawks.
yeah.
I don't know what to really think of the Rams. Like, part of me feels like the Rams would be like a team that just sneaks in the playoffs, but also part of me feels like they're a team that just kind of
They're there, but they're not. You know, they're just like Vinny, like you said. They're kind of.
Yeah. Right.
What do you think of the Rams,
Are the Rams are doing? You know, when I talk about repairing the plane while it's in the air, that's what the Rams are doing. They have a situation where they have had to get rid of some contracts, and they had a really bad cap situation. Right? People like to pretend,
Right.
oh, the cap's no big deal. Look at what so and so is doing, and what they forget is that at some point you don't get to dine and dash. At
No.
some point, you do have to pay the bill. It
Right.
happened to the Saints. It's happening to the Rams. At some point, the bill
It's going to happen to
due.
Broncos.
Right. You can kick the can down the road for a while. Oh, we'll restructure this. We'll do that. We'll move this money here. We'll move this money there. Oh, that's cool. And then what happens when that balloon pay, something eventually comes due? And that's where the Rams are. The Rams jettisoned a bunch of their high money contracts. They're going to move on from Stafford in probably another year as well. And then, but they managed somehow to stay like the plane's still in the air while they're repairing it. And that's hard to do.
Yeah.
I want to give Les Snead credit for having, because he's had to hit on a lot of later round
he's
draft
been a
picks.
really good. He's been a
lot of
really good-
undrafted. I think they lead the NFL in games played by undrafted players, I believe. You want to
Les Snead has always
right.
been a really good talent. Even back when they were in St. Louis, he was always been a good one.
Right.
Right.
Also, you know what Les Snead reminds me of? He reminds me a lot of Bobby Beathard. What I mean by that is that you're taking you're just trading all these first round picks for big talent, and you succeed with it. Now, sometimes it works in the case of Bobby Beathard and Les Snead. but a lot of times it also doesn't.
Well, the problem is it means that once you're done with that, winning that Super Bowl, now you the cupboard's kind of bare, and so they now, for the first time in about 3 years, how many years, they have a first round draft pick. They have their first round draft pick this year, so they actually will have a chance to start, restocking, adding in some of the stuff that they were missing. I see we're now running out the clock, so Baltimore's going to now go to 9-3, and they will be the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Wow.
And it was one of those games where, I mean, the better team obviously won, right? This team is just better.
Yeah.
But also there were some bad calls we mentioned, and the Chargers didn't take advantage of some of the opportunities they did have.
Nope, they didn't. Herbert had some missed opportunities for sure.
There were some like those interceptions where not interceptions, but there was one interception.
He didn't have an interception though.
But it was the fumbles really that killed them. They had fumbles in situations where they were driving to score, would have come away with at least 3, if not more. And like I said, they would have had at least 1 touchdown, I believe, at least on that play, on that drive where they ended up settling for a field goal because of the missed hit on Herbert going out of bounds. But they have enough talent that they should be a better team than this. They shouldn't be 4-7. This is a team that should probably be closer to 7-4, or at least 6-5.
And they're not, because their head coach is
in over his head. Yes,
yeah.
In over his head. Yes, their coaching staff needs a serious shakeup. If I were them, once again, I would bring back Pep Hamilton. If somebody else doesn't snatch him up, but bring him back with whoever is part of the new. I mean, I might even interview him for the head coaching position, but that's just me. But if for some reason you don't bring him back as a head coaching, at least with a chance to get the head coaching job, he should definitely be in the running for your offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Herbert had his best year to date, once again, with Pep Hamilton. So he was, rookie of the year with Pep Hamilton. I don't quite understand why people don't look at him as a guy who should at least be one of the top offensive coordinator, hires, but possibly even a head coach. He has, like I said, some head coaching experience now, though not in the NFL, but in professional football, and was a GM. So I would at least kick the tires on a guy like Pep Hamilton. I hope that they take a long, hard look. I mean, you might take a long, hard look at somebody like Mike McDonald, who is the defensive coordinator of the Ravens, the team that just handed you this 21-10 loss. I would take a long, hard look. I mean, maybe even at Dan Quinn, Todd Monken is another guy I'd probably have on my list.
I have mixed feelings on Dan Quinn.
I'm sure you do. I mentioned Deuce Staley earlier, and he's some of the work he's done, part of the turnaround team with the Lions. I would take a long, hard look also at
anybody with 49ers.
Well, the 49ers have a lot of good coaches, but it's almost like with Andy Reid in Kansas City, where there's still a little bit of perception. Obviously, Mike McDonald's shown that he's the real deal, but there's still some perception that Shanahan, at least on offense, is really the big brain. And now on defense, that's a slightly different deal, but you don't hear that much talk about, is it Jeff Ulbrich, right? Jeff Ulbrich.
Isn't Steve Wilks the defensive coordinator now?
Is it Ulbrich, or let me see.
No, Wilks is the defensive coordinator now.
Is it Wilks? Oh, well then I would love to see Steve Wilks get some love.
Steve Wilks, I really liked how now I think the Cardinals, now PJ, you were talking about teams giving up on head coach after 1 year. That's an example where I think they definitely got rid of Wilks way too soon. Because did he do great? No, but I thought they just ripped the entire banner off because they had the number one pick.
Right, to go get a guy in his late 30s or early 40s or whatever who's
he never had a winning record in college.
Even when he had Pat Mahomes, So when you bring in a guy like that, and it's all because of his, once again, genius guru credentials as an offensive guy, but he's never shown that he's a tremendous leader. He's never built anything sort of from the ground up. I always worry about some of those guys, and we've seen many of these gurus, these whiz kids. Now, Shanahan, right? He's worked out. Mike McDaniels is working out. So I'm not saying it never works out, but there's a long list of guys I can give you. Josh McDaniels flamed out twice now. We just mentioned Cliff Kingsbury, and
At least he took a team to the playoffs, and honestly, he could have gotten a second time. Like all the times with Kingsbury as head coach, they were doing really good to start, and they petered out as time went on. And also with the like Wilkes with the Panthers, that team was very close to winning their division. Like, don't forget, the Buccaneers won 8-9, but the Panthers were very, very close to winning that division despite being like 1-6 to start the season. It was crazy. Like, I got to give Wilkes a lot of credit. Like, if this Niners team goes to the NFC Championship game, which I personally think they will, because like I said before, it's the top two is the Eagles and the Niners, and then you have the Lions and the Cowboys in the next tier. If it's Eagles Niners again, the NFC Championship game, I would not be shocked if Wilkes gets another, Rooney Rule interview. I guess you could say, like, oh, we'll bring him in for an interview. Okay, we got that check off the box. We got our minority.
Yeah, you talk about, you look at the Eagles, and what an amazing job that Coach Sirianni has done, and the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator with the Eagles take the Eagles to the Super Bowl. They lose, but then Sirianni just replaces them, and they're back in their first place in that.
They're just as good as they were. Honestly,
they're the best team in the NFL.
Wow. Right? I mean, what a great job Sirianni has done with his coaching staff, and his coaching staff could get looked at as possible with candidates being part of the head coaching.
And they should.
The Eagles for like the last 25 years have been one of the very best run organizations in the NFL. The owner who I think is a Hall of Famer in Jeffrey Lurie. You have a executive who I think is also a Hall of Famer in Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman's definitely a Hall of Famer in my eyes. You also have such a very, very elaborate, like massive, like really depth coaching staff. You have so many great players. Like there's always a very consistent team, a very dominant team for most of my life too. And
Sean Desai's going to get head coaching opportunities sooner rather than later.
And you look at the two guys that went to be head coach themselves. Jonathan Gannon with the Cardinals. Granted, the Cardinals are not good, but he's the reason why that team's also competitive more than we expected. And we look at Stain Scheich and what he's doing right now with the Colts. They're currently a playoff team right now. It's the 7th seed. The Colts, this team that went 4-12-1 last year, had terrible offensive line, very watered down quarterback play. Defense was not doing well at the end of games. And now you look at the culture now, just the end of AFC South as a whole. Man, we could see 3 teams from that division make it potentially. Jags, Texans, and Colts.
Yep, Alex Tanney is going to get opportunities to be an offensive coordinator. Remember him, Trick Shot Tanney?
Mm-hmm.
You guys remember some of the early-ish days of football YouTube, quarterback YouTube?
Yes,
I got to see Alex Tanney play in person once against, was it Augustana? Don't quote me on that, but I was doing something at a college campus, and I was like asking, I could hear something. Is that a game going on? And we were rehearsing a show, and somebody said, and I said, I walked over and said, can I, I just looked through the whatever. I wasn't inside. I was just watching through the. It's Division III, so it's not the hardest to, the security's not the tightest. So I was able to kind of look through the fencing. But Alex Tanney was a guy that, if not for a fairly significant knee injury late in his collegiate career, might not have been drafted, would have been at least a priority undrafted free agent. Unfortunately, just ended up getting a tryout deal later because of the knee injury he had late in the senior year. But he's one of the better young quarterback coaches in the NFL. He's going to get offensive coordinator opportunities soon, maybe with internally because they might lose their coordinator. Brian Johnson, Sean Desai is really good. Jeff Stoutland is the best offensive line coach in the NFL. Might somebody kick the tires on him as a offensive coordinator? I don't know. He's an older guy, and people don't like older. But Kevin Patullo, the passing game coordinator, is an associate head coach. He's going to get opportunities to be a head coach.
Yeah,
they have a really, really good bunch of head coaching candidates on that roster. And of course, the Chiefs have a bunch of guys that people are going to kick the tires on as well.
Right. Well, looking at well-run organizations, and I think about this with, like you said, the Eagles and places kind of like the Rams a little bit, and little recent, but there's also teams now. They haven't been in this last 7 years, but my own team, the Denver Broncos, they were pretty well run, but then they sloughed off because their owner they lost their owner, so they started struggling. Now I think they're going to be back in that conversation of a well-run organization. But obviously, there's plenty of others. But with head coaches and everything, do you think Mark Davis is going to make the same mistake and go out and look for another guy and not hire in building? I mean, it's very possible. Is that possible, or or is Mark Davis actually gonna decide to hire in-house?
Also, news according to Will Connell on Fox, Frank Reich, head coach of the Panthers, his seat is literally blazing on fire. Yeah. Yeah. You know what I've also noticed recently too, PJ and Bill. The last few years, we've been seeing head coaches in their first year with their team get fired before the season's even over. You have Urban Meyer with the Jaguars. That was, you could make an argument that was probably the worst head coaching job in history.
Yeah,
just because of how he was on the field. That's one thing, but just everything happened behind the scenes. And right. You saw in the media from my friend Tyler, he's a Jags fan from Chicago, actually. It's actually even 10 times worse behind the scenes because they said that he not only was awful, he was an awful human being towards the staff. Like, you heard the story about how he kicked Josh Scobie, Josh Lambo, and he was like yelling at like the women there, like, get in your place, make me a sandwich.
Right.
Then you had Nathaniel Hackett, historically bad offense, like historically bad.
Yeah.
And now you have the Panthers, a team that I thought would at least be competitive, but they have been by far the worst team in the NFL, not even question. And their only win was by 1 point. 1 point. That was their only win, was by 1 point.
Well, and the one thing that I don't get, okay, with the Panthers, with Carolina, okay, Ejiro Evero, he leaves Denver, who was a top 10 defense last year, and now he's on a team that's 1-9. Hello, what the, or 1-10, excuse me. What? It like, you could have had a chance to stay with Denver and help that defense continue to develop that defense, because he interviewed with Sean Payton. He could have stayed, but no, he didn't like what happened to his best friend, Nathaniel Hackett, so he decided to leave and go to Carolina when he could have stayed with Denver. And now look at what's going on both with Carolina and with New York Jets. Both those coaches are struggling, and Denver's rising up. That just shows you right there that the coaching staff that was there last year with Denver was awful. And that Ejiro Evero should have stayed, but he decided, no, I'm going to leave. And now look, there's a coaching staff that's on the hot seat that's probably going to get let go.
Yeah, well, the Jets coaching staff is doing actually a pretty decent job. They've got to find a quarterback.
Well, offensive coordinator, I'll say that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm saying their coaching staff is doing a good job. They just don't have a quarterback right now. And when you are starting Tim Boyle, that tells you everything you need to know.
I mean, he's even worse than Zach Wilson, and Wilson's awful. Like, Tim, I want to say this, Bill, PJ,
Mhm.
I know, especially in Bill's case, you have watched God knows how many football games, whether the high school, collegiate, or even professional level.
Mhm.
Have you ever, once in your entire life of watching sport, seen a Hail Mary that turned into a pick six? No, serious question.
I know. I'm trying to. Actually, it's funny. I'm trying to think of it. I think the answer is yes, but I haven't seen it very often. No,
Yeah,
I've seen it at the collegiate level a couple of times.
I've never seen it. I've never seen it in my entire life.
I've seen it at the collegiate level a couple of times. I don't know if I've seen it at the professional level. I was trying to think. Have I seen a pro quarterback
Professional Hail
That's
Mary
what I'm
pick
trying to
six.
think of.
Hail Mary pick six.
But I have seen it at the collegiate level a couple of times. But yeah, you're right. At the pro level, I got to think about that.
Yeah, that's insane that at the pro level that would happen.
I've just never seen it. I'd never even just wow. That's quite incredible. I'm not even upset, to be honest. I'm actually pretty impressed. I'm impressed that such a thing could be done. And kudos to Tim Boyle for throwing his first touchdown pass as a Jet.
There you go. There you go. And they said it couldn't be done.
Yeah, and also just the fact that you're able to catch a ball in the final seconds and run all the way to the other side of the field for a touchdown. That's incredible. That is incredible. It really is. it just
it just shows how bad the quarterback room there in New York.
Why couldn't they get Carson Wentz? I understand Carson Wentz's injury issues, but come on, he can't be worse than Tim Boyle right now, right? They got Trevor Siemian back on the Jets. You could have gotten Joe Flacco back if you really wanted to. He's now he might be the starter for the Browns next week.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, Joe Flacco.
Losing today against Denver, that didn't help. So yeah.
Can you imagine Joe Flacco starting for his fourth team? I know he was on the Eagles, but he never started a game for them. But he might be on the fourth team he gets to start for. And also, here's another fun fact: since leaving the Ravens, he's won a total of he had played half the season with the Broncos. Then he I think a collarbone thing ended his season. Yeah. But with the Jets, I think he was 1-9 as a starter. He was washed. He looked done. He was an elite third or fourth string quarterback.
Yeah,
There
is a backup quarterback issue for most teams, frankly. Most teams have there's a few exceptions. I mean, the Browns' backup quarterbacks have actually acquitted themselves fairly well.
Dorian Thompson-Robinson, PJ
all
Walker.
of them have looked decent. But you can't say that about many teams. I guess, obviously, we talked about the Vikings. But there's a short list. There's a short list of teams that don't feel a bit nauseous when they have to go to whoever their backup is. We just talked about the Jets. Their quarterback situation is spectacularly terrible. And
New England's
they just got rid of Will Grier, and Will Grier is pretty terrible too.
Yeah,
they might bring back Will Grier for all we know. Who knows? With how many times they benched Mac Jones, are they going to actually bench him, or are they just going to keep pulling him out in a game when he does bad?
They're just going to keep pulling him out when he does bad because Bill Belichick and them don't want to bench Mac Jones because he drafted Jones. So they're not going to officially bench him. They'll just keep pulling him out of the game. That's all they're going to do.
Terrible though.
Until Belichick has had enough and does or something happens with the head coaching position. That's all that's going to happen.
To be fair to Jones, it's not exactly like the Patriots have done a good job in terms of building on a receiving core around him.
Their receiving core is
Awful.
amazing. It's something.
If you have Demario Douglas, who has been the feature receiving with
and deservedly so. Now he should be a wide receiver 3. But he's
Devontae Parker, who's another
he's
guy that's a wide receiver 3. Okay, 3 receptions, 42 yards. Then you have Tyquan Thornton, 2 receptions for 19 yards.
Who's a special teamer, basically, yes.
Juju Smith-Schuster, gone for the days of his Steelers years where they gave him the same contract that he could have given Jacoby Myers, and he's barely played at all this entire season. 2 receptions for 10 yards. They decided to even throw to Ramondre Stevenson, which he did have a good game rushing, but receiving 5 receptions for 9 yards. You almost forget that Hunter Henry's even on this team because they didn't even throw the ball to him once.
Mike Gesicki seems to now be sort of the more preferred target. He's a bigger, faster guy, but
they didn't throw. He didn't get the ball at all today.
Yeah,
well, they threw the ball at him. May not have completed it, but I saw him get a couple of.
Yeah,
targets.
they tried to throw
Gesicki
it to him, but they didn't. He didn't successfully catch the ball. But
that's not what the Patriots do. I say with completions. I said targets. I can't guarantee you completions. We're talking about the Patriots. But
he got targets. Ty Montgomery also got targets too. But just because you can target someone doesn't mean you're going to catch it.
Well, not with the Patriots. No, that's the point I'm making. Receptions is like those are theoretical things for them.
Yes.
The only thing I can promise you is targets, right? So Gesicki, when I said he's the preferred, I meant he's the one that's at least trying to get the ball to.
right.
They're trying to get the ball to him. They're trying to get the ball to Douglas because Douglas, they now realized that this guy they drafted, I think in round 6, is their best option at a Liberty.
It's so hard not to keep a straight face when talking about them because
because they were so good for so long and now they're awful.
It's just
spectacularly.
It's hard to watch.
Yes,
It's just hard to watch New England football.
Right. Well, they brought in a game manager, right? Which works if you're in a position to manage the game. The problem is if you never have a lead, game management doesn't really work.
No.
That's the problem with that. So they no longer have an elite defense, right? They can't generate pass rush. They're one of the worst teams at rushing the passer in the NFL. They can't generate turnovers. They're in the bottom. I think they're number 22. No, they're somewhere in the 20s in terms of forcing turnovers. So when you can't force turnovers, you can't consistently rush the passer, and you're only so against the run, it's hard to get leads. And now your game manager quarterback is having to not be a game manager. Now I asked him to do Josh Allen things, and he's not Josh Allen.
Listen, say what you will about Josh Allen, but, at least Josh Allen is consistently, a top quarterback in the league. He's at worst a top 10 quarterback.
Do you know if they had Sam Howell, even how different that offense would look? And I'm not trying to say that Sam Howell is headed to the Hall of Fame, but talent,
way too early. But I'm still trying to get Ken Anderson in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but right. But I'm saying the talent level gap, right? You have one guy who's out there making plays, too many plays, frankly.
That's an understatement. He just keeps throwing. Man, he keeps throwing so much that eventually his shoulder is going to come off the socket.
He's going to be the leading, passer in the NFL. And that's not what you want. They're not the kind of team. But my point is that he's capable of making these plays. He shouldn't be making so many, but he's capable of it. And Michael McCorkle-Jones, literally, they've sometimes for Hail Marys or whatever, they've pulled him because he can't throw the ball 60 yards. He literally can't do these things that some other guys can do. So they have a guy who is smart. He's a good decision maker, but he doesn't have a lot of talent, pure physical talent. And they're not built in such a way that guy is enough. They need a very different kind of quarterback. The Malik Cunningham time may be coming. Bailey Zappi is basically just a slightly less afraid version of Michael McCorkle-Jones. They're still kind of the same guy.
Their faces look somewhat similar too.
Their bodies are somewhat similar. Their arms, unfortunately, are somewhat similar. Zappy maybe has a tiny bit more zip on the ball, but
zip.
I thought you'd get on that, yeah. But neither of them are guys that are going to go out and load a team on their back, right, and just carry you. So. Yeah. Which Sam Howell's unfortunately had to do. Now, whether he should be doing it or not, it's another question, but he's doing it. He's going out there and carrying a team. The fact is that team is not constructed. The Patriots on offense, are not constructed to win football games in the NFL.
No.
Their defense has played – considering how many 3-and-outs and how many times they've been put in bad situations by the offense, has actually played reasonably well. They would look much better if they had a better offense. But
Yeah.
they lost a promising young rookie to injury in Christian Gonzalez, who was also probably their best corner. They have to overcome some injuries on defense, but the main thing is they can't get pass rush, and their offense is terrible. When you can't pressure the other team's quarterback, you're only so-so against the run. Your quarterback is a guy who's built to hold 10-point leads, but you never have 10-point leads. You're not going to do well. And so Belichick's actual game day coaching is okay. I mean, they'd be 9-7, 10-6 with a average level roster, but they don't have an average level roster.
They haven't like bottom.
Oh, sorry, 10-7, 10-7. Keep forgetting 17 games. They'd be 9-8, 10-7. I forgot about the 17 game.
Right.
If they had even an average roster in terms of talent, but they're a bottom 4 or 5 roster in terms of talent.
Yeah, at least
the Panthers roster is probably actually not worse.
Yeah, I'd say the Panthers roster is better, honestly.
Yeah, no, actually, the
Panthers roster is better. Like,
give Belichick the Panthers roster, and they probably win 5 games.
This is not Super Bowl 38 anymore. These two teams are not good.
No.
I'm saying Super Bowl 38 because that's the game they've made up against each other.
Yeah, I know. I know. Cam, and
No, that was Jake Delhomme.
Oh, Jake Delhomme. Sorry, Jake Delhomme. Yeah, all right.
There was Jake Delhomme, John Fox, Steve Smith.
Right. Kind of a trivia question, Jake Delhomme.
Rod Smart was also on that team. He hate me.
Right? Was on that team. Correct. They had Mushin Muhammad and
Mushin Muhammad was on that team too.
Right. So you said Steve Smith and Prohl was the possession receiver.
Ricky Prohl was on that team too. Yes.
But yeah, the and they have what's his name, the tight end from Ole Miss,
Wesley Walls.
Yes, Wesley Walls. From the windows to the Wesley Walls. But yeah, there's a poor. The main thing with the Patriots is their construction of that roster is just, especially on offense, is just not good. They have a decent running back room, and that's it, right? I mean, everything else on offense. Everything else on offense is somewhere between kind of bad and oh sweet Jesus, no.
Yeah, the line is gone. The days of back when Hall of Fame snub Dante Scarnecchia was the offensive line coach. Not good at all right now. Yeah. You also have it in a situation where, all you have is a decent running back. You have Ramondre Stevenson, and you have Ezekiel Elliott, who looks honestly very jarring to see him in a Patriots uniform.
Do you think Ezekiel Elliott regrets going to New England? I think
so.
He
was done no matter what where he was. He wasn't like they were going to bring him back. So
no, the Cowboys released him.
Right.
I would say he probably. I mean, Grant, as long as he's making the money, that's all that probably matters in this situation. Right. But I'm sure he wished he was I mean, him and Dalvin Cook are in a similar situation in many ways.
Right.
You have this running back with a good number of years for a team, and then you go to a different team, and you're kind of the end of your. This is not everyone can be like a Frank Gore, where you build onto a should-be Hall of Fame career by playing forever. Instead, you have Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook, who are two guys who are very similar in terms of they're done from their prime. The team didn't want them anymore, and now you're in no man's land with an awful AFC East team, which has a even worse offense and even sadder fans.
Right. Yeah.
Way sadder fans.
Oh, yeah.
Very. I mean, you have Ezekiel Elliott went from the America's team to America's team, the 21st century.
Right.
And he got really sad, and it's very sad there. And you have, Dalvin Cook, who had one snake bit franchise that wears purple to now a snake bit franchise that he wears green. So you go from like Barney to, I don't know, the Jolly Green Giant or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Waluigi to Luigi. I don't know. Just sadness in total. I feel bad for these guys, but as long as they're making money, that's what matters. At least Dalvin gets to play more games against his brother, who's on the Bills right now. Yeah.
And
I know I'm just
Dalvin Cook will be available again next year, and you won't have to pay nearly as much. He'll be
Yeah.
available for a bargain price.
What about Ezekiel Elliott? Was it just a 1-year deal for him? with the
Um,
Patriots?
I have to go back and check, but I think they'll try to bring him back. And if he's willing to play for the same amount of money, he'll probably be on the team next year.
It's probably the most amount of money he'll get this year at this
Oh, yeah.
point.
Well, when
Yeah.
you are a 31-year-old running back, you're taking what you can get.
Right. Right.
Yes, you are correct. It's, especially as Zeke was someone who's going to be in the College Football Hall of Fame for sure. I mean, he also led the league in rushing twice. It's not like he was a slouch or anything. Though it's obvious his time is done.
Yeah.
As a star.
Well, right, and he's a short yardage goal line. He's also good in blitz. Has always been excellent in blitz pickup. He's going to be a guy that's going to. Well, I mean, God, I keep thinking he's older than that. So he's only 28. Oh my gosh. Okay, so it'd be
it's almost kind of
so
weird.
he'll be,
like that,
okay, he'll be 29 next year. That's crazy. But he's only his guaranteed money is $500,000 right now. He's guaranteed $500,000.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That is really nuts. Prorated bonus of $600,000, roster bonus of $850,000. He can make up to $2.9 million, and next year he'll be playing for this or slightly less. This is as good as it gets from this point forward, probably for him. But if they cut him, which they wouldn't, but his dead cap hit would be $1.1 million. But I believe they try to bring him back, and if he's going to play for the same amount of money next year, he'll be back.
Yeah.
Speaking with the Cowboys, because of how dominant they were, do you think Dak could potentially be like an MVP at the end of the year? And if he is in that conversation, do you think the Cowboys want to keep him beyond the 2024 season, which is when his contract would be up?
The only people talking about moving on from Dak are like people in those what do you call it? What do they call
They're
those
Cowboy
things?
haters.
Right, but there's even Cowboy fans who don't like Dak.
Well, I would not get rid of
it.
it. I'd keep Dak, especially he's been playing great. I mean,
There's people now. Some of
That'd
the
be
people who.
stupid if we were.
Well, first of all, who are you going to get? Right? Who's coming? Who are you going to get? Who are you going to get? Who do you think Pat Mahomes is coming? Who do you think's coming?
Okay. The other thing I don't with the Cowboys, though, they want to get rid of Dak Prescott. They want to get rid of Mike McCarthy. But those are the two people that have taken them to the playoffs. Hello? Do you
It doesn't
not
make much
see
sense.
what's going on with Dallas?
Yeah,
the team is a consistent contender.
There are
Yeah.
Dallas Cowboy fans who have this. What's the word I'm looking for?
Unrealistic
Sense
expectations.
Right, and sense of entitlement. That if they aren't winning the Super Bowl, fire everybody. And
Yeah, that's just dumb.
Oh,
but you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
What do you call it? Boards. What do they call those
Message
boards
boards?
where people say, yeah, it's a message boards, the fan message boards. You see the craziest things you'll ever want to see. Oh my gosh, the things you'll see there. But
I've seen a lot of them. Yeah.
yeah, so there's people out there, who somehow believe you're going. I don't know who they think you're going to get, but there's people who's like, oh, we should go get Caleb Williams, or whatever. Like, and he's guaranteed to be better than Dak. That's a guarantee. You can promise me.
No.
You can promise me that. Would you
He's
Would you bet your children's lives on that?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
So that's the first thing. You have a quarterback who's played at an MVP level at points in his career. He's had some injury concerns. He's at times made mistakes in key moments, but guess what? So is everyone else.
right.
I'd be more concerned about other things, quite frankly. So, as it was mentioned, Mr. PJ mentioned that your cap situation is actually something you're going to need to address. You have some young players on the ascent who are going to want all the money. And if you can somehow head some of that off by getting to their agents now and saying, hey, how would you like to get X amount of this money guaranteed? Guarantee a lot of money, but not maybe somewhere less than the most amount of money they could make,
right.
hopefully. And hopefully they'll sign. You're going to have to move on from one or two people. Maybe Michael Gallup isn't back. I mean, you have some things to figure out.
Right.
you probably have to lose at least one of your higher paid players on defense, so you can give a bunch of money to your next couple of higher paid players on defense. Deron Bland is now playing his way into a maybe before even the rookie deal's done, slap an extension on him, before the price goes up, because the price of Deron Bland is not going to come down, people. I'm telling you this now. So yeah, you got some stuff to figure out. Maybe, once again, the whole Dak money shuffle. Hey, Dak, we're going to give you this. They'll be turning this into prorated bonus. We'll turn this into performance bonus and this into workout bonus. And we'll take X amount out of guaranteed salary and shove it over there. Now you're going to put yourself eventually into the Rams situation where at some point you are going to have to pay that bill. But you want to hold this team together as constructed for at least another 2 more years, right?
Right.
As currently constructed. You want to get 2 more years out of this, and hopefully you can squeeze the Super Bowl out before it all goes.
It's going to implode here soon if they don't make it to Super Bowl, which I think is very possible with Dallas, but they have to catch up to Philadelphia, and that's the hard part. Is
That's
Philadelphia is Philadelphia and San Francisco. They're the teams that everyone's going to be chasing, especially Dallas. Dallas is going to be chasing them for probably a while.
Yeah, you look at, like I said, the NFC, the top 4 teams are the Eagles, the Niners, the Cowboys, and the Lions in that order.
Right.
Now, I think the Eagles and Niners are in a different class, and then the Cowboys and Lions are in another class.
Right, next tier,
yeah.
Which is insane. I'm not much into the whole curse thing, but did Peyton Manning really break the curse for the Lions here? I mean, wouldn't hurt to believe it.
I mean, Goff has played pretty, the last few. He has not played that good. I mean, his QBR dipped from like a top 5 to like all the way to like 14 because how bad he's been the last few weeks. He's been vulnerable.
Right. Now some of that is the teams they've played against. Like they've hit, sort of the tougher part of their schedule. But I think they're going to right the ship. I think they're going to close out fairly strong.
Yeah, I still think they'll finish like at worst like 11 wins.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm anticipating. Right around that number, right around 11 wins. 12-5, 11-6.
And I think they'll be the 3 seed, and they're based on how I think it's going to be. I think they're going to be against the Vikings in the first round,
which would be very entertaining if that's
because that means the Lions and Vikings would be against each other 3 times in the past 4 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah, which would be absolutely insane.
Ooh.
I wonder if that would be a record. I mean, assuming at least tie a record if it doesn't set a record.
That it would have to.
I mean, right.
I know that. I think Lions Vikings. I think will definitely be one of those teams that one of those games that be one of the 3 that are games that are flexed to national TV in the final week of the regular season. I think so.
I would hope.
Especially as this is the most scantily talked about rivalry in the NFC North, obviously because it's the Lions and the Vikings. It's not like Packers Bears or Packers Vikings or even like Lions Bears or even it's or Vikings. It's Lions Vikings. In terms of championships, there isn't that much of the past but at the same time, it is an NFC North rivalry, and it is the one that's going to decide this division. And the 7th seed, I think, is going to be. I mean, assuming the NFC is as weak as it could be,
somebody from the NFC West.
Yeah, like a 9-8 Rams or Seahawks. Maybe that's worse than that, and you get like an 8-9 team, like a second place NFC South team, or maybe the Packers find a way to squeeze their way in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so somebody asked about pick 6, Hail Mary pick 6s. The Miami Miracles, San Diego, Miami was one as well, a Hail Mary pick 6. And depending the Tico Alonso pick 6. And then the other one, the Malcolm Butler one, he only returned it 56 yards, but it was a desperation last play heave. It didn't quite make the end zone, but he did return it 56 yards for a touchdown. So if you're asking about NFL history, depending on how you define Hail Mary, there have been maybe 2 more, maybe 1 more that I know of.
Well, I am gonna sign off. I need to go. To
I
bed,
am too.
so.
I'm going to as well, actually.
Yeah.
Uh,
Good night, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to Zany62 Media if you haven't already.
Yes.
Bookmark Oakland News Now and all the many other affiliate websites in the Zanyverse.
all of them.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. Signing out.
Yes,
Thank y'all.
and,
Have a good one.
I have a bunch of